Our usual solution to in-game problems is simple, which is shoot that problem with as many bullets as possible, preferably right in that problem's glowing weak spot. Very occasionally though, you'll find yourself up against a boss or an enemy who is impossible to beat by normal means. Try to attack them and you'll have as much luck as a professional mirror smasher on Friday the 13th. But take the non-violent moral high ground and you'll be rewarded with victory and, presumably, more leftover bullets to use on the next problem. Here are the times violence wasn't the answer. Prepare yourself for spoilers for the following games.
Sir Knight, in 300 years, none have stood against us and lived. Step forward and claim what is yours by right. May your faith be true.
You guys remember Oblivion, right? It was like Skyrim, only it wasn't re-released 800 times. Back in the early days of Xbox 360, the DLC for Oblivion became legendary. There was the huge expansion pack Shivering Isles, which added a new landmass, quests, enemies and items. And there was the Horse Armor DLC, which added horse armor. Guess which one became more legendary? The DLC everyone seems to forget though is Knights of the Nine. This was a modest expansion that had you running errands for a bunch of ghostly knights, probably because they have trouble picking things up being ghosts and all.
I know where you may find the gauntlets of the Crusader, for I was the one who lost them.
One knight in particular, Sir Junkan, wants you to retrieve a pair of boots in a quest called Nature's Fury.
I wish to see you succeed where I failed. I was on the path to the boots of the Crusader, but died before I reached them.
Follow your always useful quest marker and you'll meet a bunch of worshippers of Kinnereth who say you'll need to pass a test to get to the boots. It's not clear what you'll have to do to succeed, just that you'll have to respect nature.
All I can do is direct you to the Grove of Trials and remind you to heed Kinnereth's teachings. Fear and respect nature and all her creations.
This will be a cinch. I bet it's just don't drop litter and don't start forest fires. Probably don't even have to become vegan. No, it turns out that in Oblivion speak, respect nature translates to allow yourself to be mauled by a bear. Guessing no one told nature to respect me. You have to not only survive this bear attack, but also resist the urge to turn this bear into a luxuriant fireside rug and matching slippers. When you dodge or endure 3 of its attacks, a nearby cave will open, rewarding you with the Boots of the Crusader. Equip the boots, and none of the creatures of the forest will attack you. Which are slightly less useful now that I'm no longer being attacked by a bear. Thanks, boots.
The original 1996 Resident Evil on the PS1 was an astonishing achievement in horror, suspense, and voice acting.
Oh, Jill, this house is dangerous. There are terrible demons. Ouch!
I mean, really, I am astonished. By the time 2002 rolled around, however, the game was beginning to show its age, which is why a remake was released for the GameCube that considerably upped the game's graphics, complexity, and voice acting.
This whole place is a killing zone.
Or maybe just the first 2. Capcom also decided that the original game wasn't disturbing enough and to boost the horror factor, which for a game where you find the body of one of your former teammates pecked to death by crows is saying something.
It's Forrest. Oh my God.
Barry, please. Anyway, that's how we ended up with Lisa Trevor, who was a new character for the Resident Evil remake. Lisa was a young girl experimented on by Umbrella in hopes of creating the ultimate biological weapon. Not sure what the ideal outcome of that experiment was, but you have to think it wasn't wailing monstrosity who lives in a shack and wears dead women's faces as a mask. And yet here we are. Anyway, thanks to Umbrella's evil-based approach to science, Lisa Trevor is now super strong, nigh on invincible, and totally pissed. And wouldn't you know it, later in the game, you and her are going to come face to, faces? Several faces, at least, going on there. If you decide you want to fight Lisa, she's a super tough opponent, taking everything you and Barry can throw at her. However, there is another way. No, not letting her kill Barry, although come on, admit it, we all tried it at least once.
Barry!
Hey, I wanted his magnum, okay? Instead of fighting Lisa, you could choose to take the non-violent option and push these weights attached to chains off the ledges. Doing so would open the stone sarcophagus that contained Lisa's mother's bones. The sight of these bones would cause Lisa to grab the skull, give a final wail, and then, wow, chuck herself into a big pit. Thanks, Lisa. Here, truly, violence wasn't the answer. Unless the question was, do you want Barry's magnum? In which case, violence was correct. Give yourself 1 point.
Released in 1990, the original Prince of Persia told the story of a suspiciously blonde Persian prince, who had an hour to escape from the dungeons of the villainous Jafar and rescue the Sultan's daughter. This task was made more difficult by how he was always being cut in half by massive metal blades. Tends to slow you down, that. Still, we're here to rescue the princess, damn it! Oh, sorry, are we boring you? We're dodging spike traps out here! As you may have guessed from a dungeon that is full of spike traps and saw doors, Jafar's dungeon is a pretty elaborate place, so it came as no surprise to later discover that his protections extend to the supernatural as well. These include skeletal guards and this weird mirror through which you have to take a flying leap to proceed. Doing so causes the prince's reflection to run off in the other direction, which is annoying because now he'll never be able to check if the puff on his parachute pants is just right. But hey, there's a princess who needs rescuing, who is now theatrically playing with a mouse? Well, excuse me, princess. Anyway, you eventually re-encounter your reflection and, like all reflections, he wants to make you feel bad. Only this time it's with a sword rather than with stark confirmation of the size of your paws. The other bad news is that all attacks dealt to the Mirror Prince get reflected back onto you, so the only way to defeat the Mirror Prince is to embrace non-violence. Put away your sword and step towards him. At this point, he will be reabsorbed back into the prince, who can now once again shave without worrying about cutting his nose off. A quick Jafar stabbing later, and we've done it! We've rescued the princess, although apparently the mouse is also part of this relationship now. You know what? Fine, whatever. Beats fighting skeletons.
You can spot a Final Fantasy boss a mile off, not least because they're usually about 3 stories tall. These huge monsters usually represent a sustained, challenging battle, which has you striving desperately to keep your party alive and hit the boss with as much magic and hitting as possible until their massive reserve of hit points is depleted in turn-based combat. Have we considered just not waiting our turn? Just a thought. So when you venture into the catacombs beneath Cosmo Canyon and encounter a horrifying ghost face on the wall and the speed metal boss music kicks in, you're preparing for another huge fight. I'm gonna hit that guy so hard. Then I'm gonna let him hit me. Then I'm gonna hit him again. Ridiculous. You can fight Ginatak the usual way if you want, but he's a tough cookie at this stage of the game, particularly backed up by his 2 seemingly sentient flames. Alternatively, you can use an X potion on him. It's one of the game's rarest and most potent healing items and fully replenishes one of your party members' health up to the maximum of 9,999 hit points. So not something you would think you'd want to apply lovingly to your enemy. The difference is, Ginatak is an undead monster, and sloshing this ultra healing potion on him has the instant and opposite effect, costing him every last one of his 5,500 hit points. Alright, technically, using a healing potion on an undead creature is an act of violence, but you know what else is turn-based? This list. And now it's someone else's turn. Yeah, it's time to see the appeal.
Years before Red Dead Redemption's Undead Nightmare DLC, the third Alone in the Dark game was doing the zombie cowboy thing in a much blockier fashion, with series hero Edward Carnby sent to the town of Slaughter Gulch to investigate a missing persons case. It doesn't go super well in that he is immediately shot and killed by a zombie cowboy. You come back to life, but this sets a pattern for the rest of the game, so by the time you get to the part of the game we're talking about today, you're already conditioned to punch, kick, and shoot anything that comes within punching, kicking, or shooting range, especially if it's dressed like a cowboy. The only good cowboy is a dead cowboy. And John Marston. God, he's so good. Anyway, later in the game you come across this fellow who is your exact doppelganger, except that he is also somehow a zombie cowboy. He copies all of your moves and is identical to you in every way, except, you know, for the hat and chaps and decaying flesh. As with the Prince of Persia's Mirror Prince, the answer here is simple. You need to embrace non-violence, although seeing as at this point in the game you don't actually have a gun, you need to go and find one, then throw it on the ground and shout "I am against violence" for the zombie doppelganger to understand your pacifist intentions. Once you've done that, however, you are free to approach your zombie cowboy twin and mash your faces together, at which point you merge, by which we mean you put on his cowboy outfit. Now people will take me seriously in this town. Oh no, it's pretty much the same actually.
Excellent, Mara. You're becoming very adept at using the Force to anticipate my actions. Someday that insight may save your life.
Mysteries of the Sith was an expansion to the original Jedi Knight and starred Mara Jade, a Jedi and former Mrs. Skywalker. Former because they rebooted the Star Wars canon and not because of space divorce. The central mystery of the Sith in Mysteries of the Sith is why the lead character of the original game, Kyle Katarn, has turned to the dark side.
Mara, you should not have come.
What's going on, Kyle? When you located the temple, why didn't you report in?
Because when I found the temple, I found a part of me which I couldn't deny.
Additional mysteries include the origins of the Sith Temple on Dromund Kaz, and who thought a lizard monkey dark Jedi called Picaroon Sea Boodle was a good idea.
Our master is on his way to the Valley of the Jedi as we speak, a fortune you will not be so lucky to experience.
With Kyle corrupted by the Temple of the Sith, it's up to his apprentice Mara Jade to go after her former teacher. The only problem is, Kyle taught her everything she knows and is still pretty handy with a lightsaber. The old magic's still there, eh, Kyle? And when I say magic, I mean the Force. You have no chance in a straight fight with Kyle. The only way to beat him is to switch off your lightsaber and allow him to attack you. This is ballsy, considering that when Obi-Wan did that to Darth Vader, he basically disappeared and styled it out as some sort of victory. In this case, Kyle goes straight for the decapitation on his now unarmed foe, but pulls up just short of Mara's neck.
I can't. No! I won't do this. This is not the way. It asks too much of me. I can't kill my friends and allies.
Then he sees the error of his ways and turns back to the light side just in time to be the hero of sequel game Jedi Knight 2. Incredibly, not called Jedi Knight 2, Kyle Be Back. It was right there, LucasArts.
With today's video games having complex stories and Hollywood-style scripts, it's easy to forget that they used to get away with plots like the one found in NES game Monster Party. The astonishingly simple setup for this game involves a horrible gargoyle monster called Bert. Bert falls out of the sky and asks a small child to come and kill a load of evil monsters with a baseball bat for him. Also, they need to merge for ill-defined reasons. To be fair to Bert, the small child Mark is into it, and off they go to the planet of monsters, ready to stove in the head of every monster they come across. These classic monsters include skeletons and a giant fried shrimp that calls you baby and then transforms into an onion ring. Less of a horror movie staple, that second one. Surreal enemies aside, Monster Party is not a particularly sophisticated game, and the majority of your interactions with the various on-fire school kids and carnivorous plants you'll encounter comprise wailing on them with a baseball bat until they die. Or sometimes they're already dead when you get there, which, let me tell you, is a real time saver. Anyway, with all these baseball bat beatdowns going on, when you encounter a couple of zombie-looking dudes in a cave who ask you to watch them dance, seasoned Monster Party players will know exactly what to do. Shoot them dead with your gargoyle face lasers. However, it turns out your lasers have no effect, as the monsters just reform and recommence dancing. In fact, the actual solution here is to sit back and watch the zombies dance for nearly a full minute. But don't worry, with choreography this good, this won't feel like a minute at all. How long was that? That's got to be a minute, right?
8 seconds!
Oh, games truly were harder back in the 8-bit era.
So those were some of the times that we learned to embrace non-violence in otherwise violent video games. If you've got any suggestions of your own, please do put them in the comments below, and don't start any fights down there. Non-violence is the way. Please embrace tranquility. If you want to watch other videos from us, up here we've got a nice one which is about Resident Evil. It's a quiz, so if you want to have a go and see how well you know Resident Evil, check that out. And down here we have a video from Outside Extra which is about times that you forgot how to hero in cutscenes. There's Kratos there on the thumbnail. Check him out, always forgetting how to hero. What an idiot. Thanks for watching. See you next time.